Hug Bear friends, and Merry Christmas! I know it's been a while since we have posted a new show, but we haven't forgotten you. We've been working very hard on a new show all about best friends and the greatest fruits. This show will have new skits and lessons, 3 new songs, and some new Hug Bear friends too. It will be full of family fun for everyone. This video that I'm presenting to you today is very different from our regular Hug Bear Friends shows because it is an interview with 2 incredibly special people named Hurschel and Hazel Diffie. But those of us that loved and cherished them from the 44th Street Church of God and the Parkway Church, we always called them Brother and Sister Diffie. Back in March 1999, I had the honor and privilege of interviewing Brother and Sister Diffie. Brother Diffie had been diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer and had been given 6 to 9 months to live. After the interview took place, we learned that Brother Diffie had been miraculously healed by our all-powerful Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and he went on to live for several more years. I held the interview on March 5th, 1999, and was blessed to spend 2 hours listening to these precious people tell their stories about the history of their lives, their decades of service to the Lord, and the love they had for the people of their ministry. There were a series of unfortunate events which took place which delayed the interview from being brought to the public. But those are stories for another time. What's important is that God's timing is always perfect, and I am so thrilled and so thankful that I am finally able to bring it to you today. And I also want to give special thanks to Aaron Hudson of Rainstorm Video and Film, who helped me transform this video into a digital copy so I could finally bring it to the world. Before I begin the video, I wanted to let you know that the first part of it is in black and white due to a camera setting that I didn't notice when I first began the interview. But as the interview progressed, I did catch the camera setting, corrected it, and then Brother and Sister Diffie will be in glorious Technicolor. But whether in black and white or glorious Technicolor, Brother and Sister Diffie will remain 2 of the most beautiful people who ever lived in this world. This is my Christmas present to all those who loved the Diffies. And I would just like to say, if you are watching our Hug Bear Friends channel for the first time, we would love to invite you to subscribe to our channel and enjoy our videos and music which teach the love and light of Jesus Christ, and share it with others because we would love to have Hug Bear Friend just like you. Be sure to watch after the interview for a very special treat you won't want to miss. And now, we hope you will relax, sit back, grab a bowl of popcorn, and enjoy this wonderful, beautiful, and touching interview with 2 very special, precious people of the Lord, Brother and Sister Diffie. Well, I have a question for you, Sister Diffie. Tell us how you met. How did you meet?
How did we meet?
Mm-hmm.
The first time I saw Hurschel, my brother was teaching at the same school Hurschel was teaching at when we got married, Shady Grove. But my brother was teaching there, and I thought, this is getting boring, just sitting here in this room all day long. So I decided I would go out and sit in their car, my brother's car. And the boys were playing ball out on that side, which I didn't know they was going to be out there. Of course, it wouldn't make any difference if it would or wouldn't, because I went to the car is what I was interested in. But they was playing ball, and somebody threw the ball, and I guess Hurschel I don't know much about it. What do you call it? The catcher or pitcher or what? Catcher.
I was the catcher, and they threw a ball to me, and I missed
He
it.
missed
It
it?
rolled down by the car.
It rolled right down by the car where I was sitting. I thought, well, I'll get out and throw the ball to him. When I got out and got the ball and started to throw it to him, I thought, my, that's a good looking boy. I thought, well, but he's too young for me. And that was just about the essence of it. But then later on, we met at a dance, a country dance, square dance. He played music all the time, he and his brothers, and others too, but he played the mandolin so well. I've never heard anybody that could play it as well as he did. He really played it like it's supposed to be played. And anyhow, we were at a dance one night, and I thought, oh, that's that good-looking boy that I saw. I still didn't know who he was. And then my sister said, well, you know who that is later. Said that, told me who he was and who he belonged to, and some of his brothers, older brothers, and mother and father. Come to find out, his mother and my mother had gone to school together when they were young. And they got married and raised their families, and they didn't live but about 8 miles apart after our parents married. But
So you're at the dance, and
he didn't ask me to dance
He
that
did?
night.
No, I was playing.
He was playing
Oh.
music.
I was playing, but I saw her. But we met now several times after that. I played for the dances, and she would come to them. But one time I got nerve enough to ask her if I could walk her to the place she was staying with some friends of all of ours.
Mutual friends.
And so I walked her a mile to where they were from the country dance after it was all over. And I got from that, we started. That was my first time to have a nerve, because she, of course, was from a family that I did know them, but I didn't know them that well. And I was a little backward. Though I could play a mandolin, I could play a guitar, and I could play a tenor banjo and tenor guitar and things like that for the dances, but to get out and talk to the girls, I didn't do a whole lot of that. One thing, I stuttered. And I stuttered, and I always felt sensitive about that. But
Not as bad as he thought he did, though. He did stutter some.
I did. I stuttered, and I couldn't say words with.
I tell him to say I one time and stop.
I felt so sensitive about stuttering, but I got a chance to know her then, and we began going together. And I would walk to her place where she lived. It was 8 miles, and I walked that to see her. She lived in a little community, small little town, and I'd walk from our farm to her town to see her.
how many miles was it?
8 miles.
8 miles?
About 8 miles.
8 miles you walked to see her.
Yeah, one way.
I tell him to.
I decided a long time ago it was worth it, though.
So when you saw her at the ball field that day, and
No, I
she-
saw her.
well,
saw-
when you were at the ball field
Oh,
and she
at the
thought
school.
you were,
That's way back
When
before.
you-
That's before that, when she saw me playing ball at the school.
so had you seen her before that?
I seen her.
No,
Oh.
before
I saw her that day. I'd seen the whole family. I knew the family, but I did not know her.
So, but what did you think when you saw
I
her?
thought she was the most beautiful girl in the world.
I love
The
it.
most beautiful girl in the world. I just really fell for her. But I thought she felt like she was too old for me. She was 3 years older. And girls mature more rapidly than boys do. And I knew how she felt. She would just go with me just to have a little fun, but she wouldn't think about marriage. And
I didn't tell you then that I felt
No.
that way.
no, but I knew how I felt. I felt like I was sensitive to you because you were more mature than I thought I was, and then because I did stutter. But we got together. Then I had to go away to school, and I'd come in from school then about every month or so, and we'd get to see each other then. And when I got back, when I finished school, I took examination and got a license to teach in the school, and then I taught 3 semesters in the school. And but before we married, she came to the school where I was teaching one time and scared me to death. Here I was there teaching all those kids, and
I thought
here's
that'd be fun to do that.
that beautiful girl sitting back there, and I was so embarrassed.
We had broken up then, or had we
No.
both turned?
You
We
broke
had-
up.
No, we can you believe? We got together, we're talking, and we decided, because I had to go away to school, and we just decided, well, maybe we just better go with somebody else and kind of break it off a
Because you
little
were
bit.
so.
And but we were doing that, but we were having a fuss, having a good breakdown fight.
I thought if that's what he
And,
wants, okay, wait right now.
I just told her I thought it might be a good thing, because I couldn't be there all the time, and I was away in school. And so she said, all right. And right in the middle of that fuss, I asked her to marry me.
While we were
I said,
fussing.
Hazel, will you marry? We were fussing, yeah. Will you marry me? And she said, Hurschel.
He scared me to death. I thought, my goodness, what's wrong with this man? Fussing his head off at me and fussing back at him. And, would you marry me?
So when you said it, did you stop and change your tone, or were you saying
Oh yes.
it?
Oh no, no.
So it was very gentle?
I toned down. Oh yes, I toned it down.
Yeah, he toned it
Well,
down some, but
we were not
we
having a
decided
big
that
fuss. Not a
we
big fuss. But I just told her that I thought it'd
we
be
was
better
just going to
for
break
us.
up. I was.
Break up. We'd go see other people. I'd go with other people, and she'd go with other people. And while not be separated that long when I was away in school. And but I asked her then. I toned down, and we just thought, my goodness, I don't want to be away from her like this. And we made our plan. She decided, she agreed that she would marry me. Then from then on, when I'd come home, it was the greatest thing in the world to come and see a girl that I was going to marry.
Did you have a wedding?
Oh yes, we had a wedding.
We stayed. We didn't have a church wedding
No.
like they have now.
It
Nobody
was
had
simple
those
No.
days. That was during the Great Depression.
It's a huge
So-
depression.
And
And
we didn't have any church weddings out in the communities where we lived. They just dressed up. My father was Justice of the Peace. Just about all I can remember that he was Justice of the Peace in the community. And he performed many ceremonies for people. They'd come at all hours of the day or night. Sometimes they'd just have on their clothes, look like they'd just come from the fields working and get married.
No.
And
So did your father do it?
I had,
he was a justice of peace.
yes,
did
he
he
did
marry
have
you?
ceremonies for
Yes.
not our
Oh,
ceremony.
he didn't do yours?
No,
Not
no.
ours.
No, we went to a
There
minister,
was a pastor we both knew
a
and liked.
pastor we knew and
well,
liked, and we went to
in Hot
him.
Springs,
And
Arkansas.
he did the wedding in his home. And but when I went to get the license, she didn't have to go with me to get the license. I went in the courthouse and got the license.
It was
We didn't have-
snowing,
We didn't have all of the
snowing.
conveniences and all the things we have now, and the premarital counseling we have now, and all of that. I went in and got the license, and you could hardly see the car from the courthouse where I went in to get the license for us. We went to his house, and he performed the wedding ceremony, and we stayed in Hot Springs, Arkansas for our first night in a motel.
He had
And-
married my sister and her husband. Her husband lived in
The
the
same
same
minister had.
community, lived where Hurschel lived, the boy that my sister had married. And we were going to get married, have a double ceremony. And his mother didn't much like that. She thought it was bad luck or something. Anyhow, we decided, well, rather to keep peace all around, we would not get married together. But they took us, he had a car, and they drove us to Hot Springs out from the 20 miles up in the community where we lived. And I told them lots of times we just slipped and slid and never were getting into Hot Springs because it was snowing and sleeting and everything. It was so very, very cold. In fact, we didn't even know for sure if they'd be able to make it from their community to the community that I lived in, the small communities here and there. And my sister kept telling me, said, you better go up to the house and be getting ready because they'll probably come down. I said, I don't know. The ground is so frozen and it's so cold, I don't think they'll come. But finally, I decided, okay, I'll go to the house and be getting ready. And I was almost ready when they got there. My sister came in when they just got married the week before. And she said, yes, it's going to take us. And so I went ahead and finished up getting ready.
I walked into the house where she was after she got dressed, and she was dressed in the most beautiful gray three-piece suit, and I just thought, I've never seen anybody in my life looks as pretty as that.
You didn't see all this wrinkles then.
But we were married that night, and then we went back home. We didn't have a honeymoon. We went back home because I had to be. Oh yes, we.
That's the interesting part of it.
Oh well.
That's not
we're dragging
pertaining
this
to
on
your
a long way,
ministry.
honey,
We sure are. This is
No,
long.
I want all this stuff. So.
But
fun.
we went out to eat. Can you believe our dinner cost us 15 cents apiece
Oh, Lord.
for our wedding dinner?
We
Wow.
could get it with, if it was just vegetables, it was 10 cents. But if we got a meat with it, it was 15 cents.
Oh.
That's the good old days.
Yes, those are good days.
But anyhow, when we got up, the ground was real white with snow.
White with snow. So you had a white wedding. From when you were young, how old were you?
When I started the ministry, I was 25.
25. So what did you do even before that?
But we were in Arkansas. We were born and reared in Arkansas. I was raised on a farm in Arkansas. And but I had to go away from home to go to school. And I went to school, and then I came back. And of course, Hazel and I were dating at that time, and we came back, and I came back to home from school, and I signed a contract, was teaching in the public school system in Hot Springs County, Arkansas,
Oh.
when we married in 1935. And I finished the last semester in 1936, and we decided to come to Arizona, and I was planning on having a teaching career. I'm going to go back to college and finish my education and teach.
What did you teach?
Grammar school,
Oh, really?
yes. And I was teaching in a place called Shady Grove in Hot Springs County school system. We came to Arizona, and we were going to come here and make our fortune in Bisbee, Arizona. Then I was going to go back to college and finish my education and have a teaching career. She was Church of Christ, I was Methodist. I was raised as a Methodist. I was converted in a Methodist church, and I was baptized in a Methodist church. And we came to Arizona. We went to a Methodist church in Warren, Arizona, and it was so different to our Methodist church in Arkansas, we didn't like it. So we got to shopping around. We went up the gulch in Bisbee, Arizona. We heard people singing so enthusiastically along on the street, and we stopped by to see. I was telling you on the tape before the phone rang, I hope it won't ring anymore, that we were in Bisbee driving up the Tombstone Canyon. I called it a gulch, but going up Tombstone Canyon, that's
The only street
the
through
only
Bisbee,
one,
so
only one street in Bisbee then that went all the way through. That was called Tombstone Canyon. We were driving up that, and we heard people singing so enthusiastically along the side of the street, and we stopped our car and went in, and it was Church of God.
You could hear them?
You could hear them from the outside. They had the windows
We could see
open.
them.
We could see them.
Through
The
the
windows
door.
were open, and the church was right close to the street.
Hot summer.
And they had the windows open, and so we went in, and they were singing songs we sang in Arkansas. Before we came here in Arkansas, I had organized a quartet, like the Pilgrims. We had 4 boys, 4 of us, singing, and we sang there. So when we came out here, I liked the kind of singing they were doing in the Church of God. And we both did. We went in, but we didn't like their type of services because that was not the kind we had been used to. They were rather enthusiastic, and we didn't know about their experience of the baptism of the Holy Spirit. And we'd hear them. It took a little while for us to get in. We went in and sat in the back of the church and eased on up a little closer. And of course, I like music, and I wound up really in singing. We both did, in singing in the choir. And then I ended up directing the choir, and I organized a quartet. We had a very good quartet. We sang for the radio station twice a week for sponsored programs.
Which radio?
KSUN in Bisbee. And there was a sponsored program twice a week, and then we sang for our church program because we did that for the station, and we didn't charge them for it. We got a church program Sunday morning for a half hour. We sang for that. But while we were in the church, I didn't believe in the Pentecostal experience, and so I bought a Bible so I could study it, a good reference Bible. I had a Bible, but I got a good reference Bible, so I could prove to those people that they're wrong about the baptism of the Holy Spirit. And so as I studied, I found out they were right, and I began to get convicted about the baptism of the Holy Spirit, and I began to seek the baptism. I didn't tell Hazel. She didn't tell me. We were both seeking the baptism of the Holy Spirit.
This is way down the line from where you started, though.
Yes, it's a long way.
Way down the
It took a
line.
lot of time. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
For us. We'd gotten into the church then by that time, and we had not joined the church, but we were fully involved with it. And then I kept feeling a call to the ministry, and I argued with God. I argued with everybody that I was not going to be a minister. Because I felt that, I told everybody, I'm not going to be a minister. I'm going to have a quartet, and I'm going to sing all over, and have a quartet for the church, and then we'll sing all over southern Arizona, which we did. But
His quartet was Hurschel and his brother, and me and my brother.
Oh.
That was our quartet.
that we switched around different
Well, part of the
different
time,
groups.
but that was
different
the main
groups, yes.
group.
This is the main group.
What was it called?
Just
Just church quartet.
Quartet.
church quartet. Just quartet.
We didn't
We
really,
never had any
we didn't
name
have
for
the
it.
name quartets in those days.
It went by my name. I mean, it was my quartet. I'd organized it, but we Hazel Diffie in the quartet, and Hazel, and we had different ones that joined us at different times. But I got to feeling the call to the ministry, and I was arguing that I was going to go back and become a teacher for my life's work. But I kept feeling that God wanted me in the ministry, and I didn't tell anybody. But I was praying very much, and I kept seeking the Lord. I was working in the mine in Bisbee, and I get back in a dark tunnel in the mine and put my light out and just pray for a long time, sometime asking God to help me, that I could have peace of mind and still stay in Bisbee. We liked the church, we liked the people there, and I told the Lord I would keep a quartet going, and I finally got to the point that I even promised the Lord I would pay a double tithe if I could do that and still stay there and be at ease and have a peace of conscience. But I came home one night. I never told Hazel at all.
I knew.
You knew?
I knew.
How'd you know?
Because the way he talked, the way he acted, and how miserable he was getting. I knew he wasn't obeying God's call to.
I never told her, nor she didn't say anything to me about it.
I knew not.
But we had both, of course, been convinced about having the Holy Spirit, so we both received the baptism of the Holy Spirit. But now I was fighting the ministry because then our pastors changed every year. And we didn't want to be swapping around and changing. We had already decided we wanted to have our children, have our family one place, live one place, and let them grow up one place and have a good, solid family. And so before we had a family, though, I felt this call to the ministry, and I was fighting it because I didn't want to be moving all the time. Finally, one night I came home from work. She would, and I worked evening shift, she would stay up and we'd sleep together then. I'd get home about 12 o'clock at night and sleep then until 8 or 9 in the morning. I worked in the afternoon. And we had a prayer, and we prayed for quite a while before going to bed. And then she finally got up, went to bed, and I kept praying for the longest time. And I was battling. I was just asking God to help me to have peace of mind, peace of conscience. And she didn't know what I was praying for, but I was just, in my own heart, I had to have something settled then. And so finally, she had gone to sleep. And I got so disturbed in my prayer, and that I didn't get an answer that I wanted. And I called her and told her, we have to go get somebody to pray for me. This is now about 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm guessing. And we didn't have a pastor then. The pastor was gone. And we knew a beautiful old lady, Swedish lady, who was very wealthy, but who was very gracious to the church and to all the churches here and to all of us. But and I believed in her. Go down and get Sister Peterson to pray for me. And I thought I was in such a condition, I was trembling. I was actually literally trembling from the pressure I was under. And I told Hazel we were going to go down to have her pray for me. And you'll have to drive the car, I told her. We lived in the last house up on the mountain of Tombstone Canyon.
Right at the foot of the divide. Leaving out of Bisbee.
Going out of Bisbee, coming this direction. And I was well, what did I tell you? Ready to go. We were going to go down to get her to pray for me. I told Hazel, you'll have to drive the car, because I knew I was in such a state of mind, I may just die and wreck the car going down, driving down that very, very steep mountain. And so she was going out to the house she saw the state I was in. I was trembling and shaking, could hardly talk, and she was going out to get in the car to drive, to take us down there.
Hold the doorknob, ready to go.
I reached back to get my Bible to take it with us as we were going down for prayer. As I reached to get the Bible, I just got it off of a stand in the living room, and I turned around to go out the door, and I just made my mind up then. I didn't say it audibly. I just said, Lord, if I have to move every 6 months to have a peace of conscience, I'll do it, but I will preach. And when I said that, I became as calm as I am now. And all the shaking stopped, and I could speak well. And I told Hazel, there's no use to go now. She said, what's happened? I told her, I'm going to preach. And I was determined to do that. Then I made my mind up. I had to move all of the time. But then since that time, I've been so thrilled that God gave us what we wanted, that we were able to stay here. Now we've been here 53 and a half years since we came to Phoenix to pastor this church. But I was afraid I'd have to move every year like the pastors did then. And first, when I decided to go in the ministry, then I decided to go back to college then. We went to Lee College, which Lee College now was old Bible Training School, Church of God Bible Training School in Sevierville, Tennessee.
University.
We went there, and now it is now Lee University. But we went there for a year, and we came back and went to work. I worked in the summer. We were going to save our money and go back the next year until I finished college. And as a result of it, I didn't get to go back. I got ill, became ill with arthritis. I had arthritis all of my life. Growing up, had a lot of trouble with it.
Rheumatic fever.
And I was one time in bed 5 months when I was 15 years of age. I couldn't help myself. They had to turn me on a sheet in the bed with arthritis. My joints were all so bad. But then I got over that, and I was making it all right working in the mine.
You working in mines?
Working in the mine in Bisbee. I
Were
worked
those
down
big old miners' hats with the light out there?
thousands of feet underground.
Oh.
Yeah, and I worked there. We were there, and but I was going to go back to college. But before I got to go, I came home from work one day. My legs were very, very sore, and I had a very bad time walking. But I got up one Saturday morning, to go to work. I got out of bed. I couldn't walk. My legs were so bad I couldn't walk. So I got a chair and pushed the chair around all over the house and walked behind the chair, trying to get my legs limbered up enough that I could go. I had arthritis in my hands and feet and legs. And so I finally had to go down 60 steps from where we lived on the hillside to get down to my fellow picking me up, riding with a man to go to the mine to work. And I was going down. I couldn't walk down the steps, so I let myself down with my arms on the rails on each side, 2 steps at a time, just dropped my feet down. Went on down to work, and I finally got my clothes changed to go underground. And I went underground to work. But I got back to my job, and I couldn't do it at all. I couldn't walk, and I couldn't bend over to do the job. So I had to swing on pipes that are hanging on the side of the wall of the tunnels in the mine to get back outside and have them to bring me home. And as a result of it, I got home, and they had to take me to the hospital. I couldn't walk. Took me to the hospital September the 1st, 1941, and I stayed in the hospital in Bisbee, Arizona, totally helpless invalid. They put me out of the hospital April 16, 1942. I was in the hospital 7.5 months.
Wow.
With arthritis. I was helpless. I couldn't feed myself. I couldn't get a drink of water, and they had to turn me every 4 hours to keep me from getting pneumonia. They turned me from one side to my back to the other side to my back. My hands were all swollen, and my jaws and my knees were very large. And I had, in all of that, I had my heart collapsed.
Pneumonia.
Yes, I had pneumonia, but they didn't think I would make it. And in fact, the doctor told my family all I wouldn't make it. I had 4 brothers in Bisbee, and they were working. They all laid off from work one night to see me die. The doctor said I wouldn't make it during the night. Hazel sent a telegram back to the church was praying for me, of course, in Bisbee, and she sent a telegram back to Lee College, to BTS, where we had been the year before, and asking them to pray for me. And they prayed for me.
I told them what the doctors had said, that you would last through the night.
Yes, that would be my last night.
And how old were you again?
I was about 21. 21. No, I mean, no, 26. Beg your pardon. I was 26, yes.
That's still
26.
young.
Then, because we'd been back to college almost ready 1 year. And I was going back and going to prepare myself for the ministry, but Hazel had to work to make a living for us, and but she would take off. The nurses would feed her my breakfast. Hazel would take off from her job and come to the hospital at noon and feed me my noon meal. And she'd take off from her job at 5 o'clock in the evening, then come back to the hospital and feed me my evening meal. And then she was working as a cashier in a market. And I'd feel so sorry for her, having to come work all day and then come there to feed me, and I couldn't feed myself. But doctors told me that I would never be able to walk if I was able to walk any, because my knees were out of shape and my hands were out of shape. My hands were twisted and gnarled, and they would sometimes come in and work my fingers and work them and straighten them out, and put a gauze pad, a gauze cotton wrapped gauze pad in my hand to keep them from closing up so tightly. They'd come, and that was so painful because I had knots on my joints, and they told me that I would not be able to walk. But if I was able to walk, I'd walk crippled. And but after 7.5 months there, they needed the bed I was in. They couldn't do any more for me, they told me. And they took the bed I was in the hospital for somebody they could help. They sent me home. And I went home. They took me home, and I collapsed in the bed, and they got me to the house. And I was in a serious condition then. I couldn't do anything. But
you had improved considerably.
I was improving then.
You had been.
Improving quite a bit from what I had been before. I had to learn to walk all over again. I got my Hazel would have to hold me up, help me to walk. But the company was so good to me, they let me drive my car and park it by a big utility facility they had for hauling timber and everything up and down the mines. They let me drive the car down and sit there as a guard. I couldn't walk around, but I'd sit there as a guard. And I had a telephone. I could call anybody to help that I needed. So they let me do that for a year. And I learned to walk all over again. And I got so I was getting straightened out, and my hands got straight. They were gnarled, and they began to straighten out. And so after that, I played a mandolin and played a guitar, and everything with my fingers, everything, and I don't have one stiff finger now. And they were stiff then. I couldn't use them. And so God was very good to me.
Mm-hmm.
All this healing process started, though, after the night that we had all been praying so much. Just night and day, it seemed like, when everybody having to work and everything, but still everybody was so burdened for him. His condition, his fever would be so high, and his hands so swollen, and his legs too, his face and neck was really swollen big too. He couldn't open his mouth, just barely enough that I could put a teaspoon in the edge of his mouth where the food could go on down. But anyhow, that's the way he was. when he told you about me sending a message back to Lee College. And I didn't know Ruth White was at college with us.
John White's sister.
She rode to the college and then back home with us in Bisbee, Arizona. But anyhow, she was in college when I sent the telegram, and she heard them announce it that he was near death and would not live through the night if God didn't undertake for him. And she, along with some of the teachers that ate at our table when we ate our meals, there was about 10, I suppose, people ate at each table. But anyhow, we had 2 of the teachers, lady teachers. They, along with several out of the girls' dorm, got up and went out. And I don't know if there, in those days, if there's any men met out there in the lobby with them or not. But anyhow, that they prayed to. And one night, this night, one of the teachers finally got up about 3 o'clock, I believe Ruth said. After she told me this after she got home. But the thing that happened before she got home was when the next morning after I sent the telegram, when the doctors and nurse came in. You know, nurses used to always be with the doctors. He came in and said, "My, how the swelling has gone down in his neck. That's just amazing how it could be." And so is that where
You were talking about when
he was
he
in
got
the hospital,
right.
You said
they said
telegram.
that he was so much better, so different that morning to what he had been. I stayed at the hospital all night. The brothers and nearly all of them had to work, and they went home to go to
Well,
work.
they stayed off from work that night.
They
to see
stayed
me
all
die.
night. That's
Yeah.
right.
Mhm.
They stayed
See me die that night.
all night. And anyhow, this was the next morning. But when Ruth came home from school, she told me that about 3 o'clock in the morning, one of the teachers, Sister Seiler, I don't know how many people you might meet up along the way that would remember her. That was a few years ago. But anyhow, she got up and told all of them, said, "You need not pray for Brother Diffie anymore," said he's going to be all right. Said we can just all go back to our rooms now, said he's all going to be all right. And sure enough, the doctors came in and said what they did. But from then on, he made a continuous, very progressive thing with healing in his body, went on from that time on. And that's when it seemed that we had really, the church had prayed, and of course I was praying constantly, all the time, worrying about having to lose a husband, and didn't have any babies. I wanted a baby so much. And anyhow, that's the way it was until he was healed enough where he was able to walk some. But he used to tell me when we'd walk down the street, he'd say, "Why don't you just go ahead? I know you feel embarrassed having to walk so slow and all with me, and when I can't." He'd just shuffle his feet along like this to walk. I said, "I will not do it." I said, "You're my husband, and I'm going to walk along with you while we walk down the street." But he needed to get some exercise. So we may be prolonging this too long.
No, this is great.
Anyhow, that's that part of it.
Let's see. You talked about the miracle of your healing from the arthritis.
In Bisbee.
Talk about some of the other things, like with your eyes or some of the other things that you've had happen.
I thought it might be of interest. I came here with our quartet to a convention in Phoenix. Brought our quartet. We sang for our Church of God state convention from Bisbee, and we stayed here for that. And the state overseer asked me to go in the ministry. To go in to pastor church. I had never pastored. I had gone to college, but I'd never pastored. And he just insisted and wanted me to go, and I felt convicted about that. He wanted me to go to pastor church in Mesa. I had a very good job in Bisbee, working for the power plant for the company there, and I could wear my collar and tie and take water samples in boilers and do all of that. Then they had elevated me to that place in my working for the company. But I told him I would go to pastor the church in Mesa. We went over there and Hazel saw the church. She didn't like it. There was a little church, not much bigger than this living room.
I can say a whole lot now. But
she didn't want me to take off because I had a good job and a good paying job and would be there for my life if I wanted to be. And so I went down and resigned, and we came to Mesa to pastor. And we went there, just a very few people in the church. 8, 10, 15 people was all they had. And in a church 22 feet wide, 30 feet long. The whole church, that's everything. The platform and everything. But I started in with that. And I had to go to work. I went to work as a plumber in Mesa to be able to pastor the church. I went to work as a plumber because I had done pipe fitting before. We did so well. God blessed us with the church there. Even we didn't have a classroom, didn't have anything.
We had a good church and some good people that was willing to work and willing to sacrifice and give, but then there just wasn't money. That's all there was to it.
Nobody there. That's during the wartime. And so we, can you believe, our restrooms at the church was a little place with 2 holes back over a canal.
Terrible.
That's all we had. That's the kind of church we had. Mesa then was 4,000 population.
Wow.
And we were out in the edge of town. But God helped us, and we ran that church over. We got more people than we could get into it. We had classes all around. A class under this window on the ground, a class under that window, different one teaching. We were there for a year and a half, and then the overseer urged us to come to Phoenix to pastor. I didn't want to. I told him, no, I'm going to build a church in Mesa. But he came and told us that he felt that the church here were disappointed because their pastors had moved every year and they wanted somebody to stay with them. And they were going to pull out of the Church of God. He told me if I didn't come because they voted for me second choice as their pastor. And so I finally did come. But now, that was in September the 1st, 1945, and we came here to pastor this church, and we're still here. We saw Gail and Gloria go to grammar school from the same house, and grammar school and high school and college from the same place we lived, where we lived there for 38 years. And God has been good to us, let us even stay around here yet. Now, after I had to quit because of my illness, because of my heart condition in 1976. But you mentioned about some miracle that might have happened in our church. I can just tell you one that I had a call the other day from a man who was the person. Lewis Riddle came here from Oklahoma, and we were in the church, a little congregation here then.
Grandmother knows them.
Yes. Well, yeah, all the family knows them. They were with us for years, but they came one night. He was here. He came here from Oklahoma with tuberculosis in the last stages. He was not expected to live. The doctor told him he wouldn't live if he stayed back in Oklahoma. They came here, and his wife couldn't get a job to pay enough to support them both here. So he was going to take her back to take her to the bus station. She was going back to Oklahoma to work there, send money here to support him while he could take his rest for getting a cure, hopefully, for tuberculosis. He took her to Tempe. He drove over to Tempe to take her to catch a bus. They missed the bus. They came back by our church and there was a light on. We were having services. And he said, why don't we just go in there? They were all down and very depressed. He was a very sick man and she hated to have to leave him. And they came in. I preached. He told me the other day about it. He called me from Oklahoma the other day. And he's just such a beautiful person, the couple. But they stopped in for service that night. I gave an altar appeal and nobody responded. He said there were 2 hurting people. He told me this the other day. 2 hurting people walked into that church that night. And you gave an altar appeal and nobody responded. But then you said before you closed the service, is there anybody here who would like to be prayed for that you might be saved? He told his wife, why don't we raise our hands? And they did. The next morning at 8 o'clock, I was at their house. I got their name and their address. And that's the only time in my life I ever went to somebody's house. The first time they visited us, but I went to see them. And I thought, this is so strange. Their suitcases packed and no furniture in the place. And they were in a little cottage. And I found out what happened. They did get converted. They came back to the church and were converted. But God healed him totally, completely of tuberculosis. And he began to work. She didn't have to go back there anymore. He was healed totally. We all prayed for him. And he went to work for Tanner Industries as a mechanic. He was a good mechanic back in Oklahoma, working on heavy equipment. And he worked with them for so many years that he became their chief mechanic for their entire big operation, where they had all the road building equipment and all these big trucks and everything. He did that, and now they left. They retired. They went back to Oklahoma. And he called me and he cried, telling me about what a great joy it was that they came in that night, that I came to their house, and then I invited them back to church, and they were saved. And then he was healed. And he's totally well. And that's been now 51 years ago.
They made wonderful members of our church too. I don't know anything about it.
We had another man who had tuberculosis. And doctors told him he had to have total rest for 18 months to 2 years. And he went to bed. And doctors were checking him. They took x-rays, they did everything, but he told me he couldn't work anymore. He was an upholsterer. And he went to bed for 18 years to 2 months, 2 years, 18 months to 2 years. And several of us, Hazel and I, and the Stars, as you know, they knew them, and Brother and Sister Riddle went to Nap Michigan, went to their house to have prayer meeting with them. And we had prayer with them while they were in their house. And Sister Riddle, this is the one whose husband was saved, was healed. They both were saved. She was healed of tuberculosis. I just told about him. Well, she was a backward woman. We were praying, and suddenly the Holy Spirit just touched her. She just walked over to the bed and grabbed this man who was lying under the sheet with tuberculosis so bad. She grabbed him by the toes and just began to shake. And he just hollered out, I am healed, I am healed.
She was in the spirit doing that.
Yes, but he went to the same doctors the next week that he had been to before. They took x-rays and his tuberculosis was gone. He worked for a few years here then as an upholsterer and became a minister and went to New Mexico and pastored and built about 3 or 4 churches in New Mexico. And your mom and all the family would know him, the white leg. That's some of the healings we've had.
What about your eyes?
My eyes, I had iritis. It's a form of arthritis. It was in the eyes.
Everything.
And my eyes got very bad. problems. I've had problems all my life with my eyes, my vision. But this got very bad. And my eyes were infected. I had what the doctor Paul Case here, still here practicing, called iritis, conjunctivitis, and uveitis, iritis, and conjunctivitis. It's all in the eye. And there's infection so bad I couldn't see out through them. One eye I couldn't see with. The other eye I could see everything, but I had to have to read, I had to have a big magnifying glass to read. And that was for about 3 or 4 months. I was that way and I couldn't drive. And but I was going to the doctor all the time, and they didn't give me any hope for my sight. They told me with severe uveitis. We went to the library, and Hazel, we could pick up books in the library, and Hazel read to me about the diseases I had in the eye, because it just kept hanging on for 2 or 3 months, and about 4 months. I couldn't see, and I thought, I'll not be able to pastor a church blind. The doctor told me that he didn't know whether I'd be able to see or not. But one Sunday morning, I went out of the house to go to the church. We lived only a block from the church. I could see when I got outside, see how to walk, and I walked down to the church down the street. But I walked out of the house. We planted a little tree in the front yard, and I bumped my face into that tree. That hurt me very bad. I thought, I can't pastor a church with blind, and this is the kind of thing. It didn't hurt me. It just hurt my feelings because I'd been so bad. I was very depressed. Hazel had helped me find my scriptures and helped me get them and read them and prepare my sermon in big notes. And then I'd go to the church and read my text with a big magnifying glass, and then preach best I could from memory. Then I'd study my sermon with a big magnifying glass at my office. And so I went into the church that morning, and Brother Riddle, the man who was healed of tuberculosis, was there. He was our Sunday school superintendent. And he was there, and he'd gotten everything all ready for the classes, and the materials, literature, all scattered around for the classes for Sunday school. And he was sitting down by the altar reading when I walked in front of the church. And he came back. He said, Pastor, because everybody was concerned about being blind, and I couldn't see. They were concerned and fasting and praying for me. And he said, Pastor, I read a scripture just for you this morning. And when he read the scripture to me there in the foyer of the church, you think what it was. Hebrews 10:6. God is not unrighteous to forget your work and labors of love, and that you have ministered to the saints and do minister. That's all the scripture. When he read that, I began to cry. He did too. And I thought, well, surely that is a message from God to me. That morning, I went ahead, I read my scripture with a big magnifying glass. I preached the best I could from memory. My notes, I tried to memorize them as best I could and preach. When I finished my sermon that morning with the house full of people, that church was full of people, and finished my sermon, and I didn't make an altar appeal that morning because my eyes were hurting so badly. I wanted to go home and get in the dark room. And so I had everybody stand for dismissal prayer. Somebody prayed a prayer of dismissal. I asked them to pray a prayer dismissing us. And when they got through, people were all ready to go home. And this Brother Riddle and another man, Clifford Orndorff, standing on the platform. Clifford was the assistant superintendent. And they had talked about it. They felt that they ought to pray for me again. And so they just called everybody to order. We feel like we ought to pray for Brother Diffie again. And when they did, in 5 seconds, I could see everybody in the church. Everything was clear to me, I could see. And I was so happy. I was healed just immediately, instantly. And I went home. And I was going to go in and look and see a couple. My eyes were so bad. Every day for 3 months or more, I went to the doctor's office to get shots to build me up to overcome the infection in my eyes. And he would check me with his high-powered scopes in my eyes every day. And he'd tell me, I don't know that you'll ever be able to see with them again. And so he would give me all the medications, giving me shots every day, 5 days a week. And so that Sunday, I went home. I walked into the bathroom to see my beautiful eyes. It looked like 2 balls of blood, just as red as they could be. And I was so disappointed because I thought they were going to be clear. I could see out through them. And that afternoon, I went into my study. I studied my sermon, and I planned my sermon, made my outline. I went to the church and preached that night without my magnifying glass. I was the Dr. Paul Case here in Phoenix, still here, the next day, and he did the same thing he did before. He gave me a shot, and then he checked my eyes with his scope. He said, Pastor, this is one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in all of my life. Friday, when you were in here, I could barely see into your eyes because of the congestion with these scopes, these high-powered scopes. And now you're looking out through them. He said, I can tell you, you've got a lot to be thankful for. And after that, I didn't need my magnifying glass, and it stayed in that pulpit stand until we sold the church, and your mother got that magnifying glass out of the pulpit stand and brought it home and kept it till about 2 years ago. She brought it over here and gave it to me. And that magnifying glass I used in the church. I have a magnifying glass, a big one I used in studying in my study at home, and then use that one when I preach.
That was another one of the big, big miracles that was performed in his life.
Everybody was there.
Yes,
Everybody
so
saw it.
many.
They just knew it.
And it was there.
I preached that night without having my magnifying glass. And God has been so good to me. And we've had other miraculous things from other people that have been so great. I don't want to take a whole lot of time. I don't know how much time you want on this. But I have just seen so many things where God healed somebody, and some of the most miraculous things was somebody being saved who was so hard. That's the greatest miracle in the world, somebody being born again. A man came in drunk as he could be and was converted, saved, and sobered up, and didn't know how he got there or where he came from. And he didn't know a thing, but he just sobered him up, and he was that sober that quick, and he was saved that quick. So that's a miracle too.
About where you came from?
The church we first came to was a little adobe church on Washington Street, and it would seat no more than 150 people, and we crowded it out and didn't have room for the people. In fact, we had a revival there one time, and we had to buy a PA system to hang a speaker on the outside of the church for the crowds we couldn't get in. But we crowded the church, and then we sold that and moved over to 44th Street Church. 44th Street, and built the church there. That seated 400 people, and it was just so much bigger than the one we had before. Our little congregation from over there looked so small in that, but we filled that up. And in fact, we got it so filled in special meetings, special services. We didn't have refrigeration then. We had evaporative coolers, and we had crowds so large we couldn't get them in the church, we would open the side door, a double door, the side of the auditorium, and put out 40 or 50 chairs out on the lawn for people out there to hear. And they could look into the double door, and you'd have seen conventions and various other activities in the church. And we just crowded the church out many, many times. And when Brother Logan came, he crowded it out more. He put in a double wide mobile home, and then took the other building we had there and still overcrowded it. He put our Sunday school was at the other church. We made a record of 156 at the old church in Sunday school. We moved over at the 44th Street. We made our Sunday school record there, 418. And we would run as many as 375, 350 to 375 along in wintertime when people were all here. But then when we sold that, then moved over to where we are now, I'm just thrilled to see now that things are picking up for us, and we're having so many more people now, getting new people coming in.
What are some of the goals that you would like to see happen at Parkway?
I want to see it filled like it was last Sunday morning with Winterfest. I want to see the church filled. That's why I've been working as hard as I have with Dr. McCrae, trying to do everything I could, visiting. I couldn't do a whole lot, but with what energy I had, visiting people, and I love doing that, going to nursing homes and hospitals and visiting all the new people. I tried to visit all of the new people who came to our church within 2 weeks after they came. And I was thrilled to see a lot of them coming back, and they're still coming with us now. They've joined the church now, and I'm so glad. And I want to see the church filled to its capacity with all of the various ministries going on. I'm glad we have more ministries now than we had. When I was pastoring, I did not even have an associate pastor, only just a couple of times during my time there. And I didn't have a minister of music a lot of the time. So a lot of the time I directed the choir and I did everything, and I play guitar while musicians playing the organ and piano. But we had all of our instruments stolen one night. They took. We had a bass fiddle and I had 2 guitars there, and they were stolen, and a lot of our equipment they broke into the church and stole all of it. So I never did get my guitars nor my mandolin back. Gail has bought me a mandolin since I've retired, but I don't play it. It's not. I don't have anybody else to play with. But I want to see the church. I just want to see the place filled with people really deeply worshiping God. I am hoping we will see a real Pentecostal church there yet, that people will be converted by the scores and receiving the baptism of the Holy Spirit by the scores. I just hope to see that.
We're seeing a lot of good things happening and going on, but then I guess you're never satisfied. You still want to see more of the same, or some going to higher heights, deeper depths.
I'm dreaming of you having a much bigger choir than you have.
Yeah.
Now,
You have got a
gonna
larger
have-
choir than you did.
I'm so glad.
It's a lot bigger now.
We've got competent people now on our church staff, and I'm glad Brother McCrae has been able to get people now to work with him who will be able to help to build the church to its capacity. I want to see the church filled to its capacity. I would love to see that we had to have 2 or 3 services on Sunday morning. I really would.
Whether we're there or not. We want to be there, and we are there when sometimes it's hard for us to make it when we do, but then
You what you feel about what you think about the Hurschel Diffie Life Center that they're building. What do you think about that?
I'm so shocked that you were even thinking
that
about
was
that.
quite a surprise.
I was so shocked too when he told me that he was planning on doing that. And I think it is very gracious to think of doing that in the Diffie Worship Center, Family Worship Center. I think it'd be great. We need more space. We need a good gymnasium. We need a good dining area. We need a good big kitchen. And
It would also have classrooms in it.
yes, you're going to have classrooms
Mhm.
around that. And that's what I would love to see that. And I think this is magnanimous of Pastor McCrae to want to make it a Diffie Family Life Center. That's very gracious of him. But I'd like to see it done, whatever the name is, see it done and see it filled with people. Because I know the more facilities we have and the more ministries we have going, the more good we're going to do for people. And that's what I'm just excited thinking about having that there. I wish I could be able to stay here and see it's finished and filled up. I just hope the Lord will help me to stay.
He makes lots and lots of wishes.
Yeah.
Sometimes he wishes that he was a young man, could start all over again, and other times he said, well, we've had our day, and we had a good day and a good time. The Lord saved a lot of people through his ministry and all. And we've got a lot to be thankful for, and his healings that he has performed in his life too.
You were wanting to tell a story about Gail that had a
Well,
miracle?
That's
Was
okay.
it
If there's
Gail?
something else that's more
Oh,
important.
go ahead. Go right ahead.
This happened while we lived in Mesa, and of course we just had a little tiny place to live in, which was, but the Lord
2
was
little
with
rooms.
us. Anyhow, it was a house that was being built, and the church bought it, and we had to remodel it and tried to build it up to where we extended it somewhat. But anyhow, Gail got real sick, and she would kind of whine and cry, and I told Hurschel, I said, she's real hot with fever. And I could tell her temperature kept going higher all the time. And for 3 days, we kept praying and praying for her, and it just seemed like that we couldn't get anywhere with the Lord, and we didn't have any money and no way
Had
to
no
get
insurance.
Insurance or anything.
You see a doctor
to get in
and
the
we just-
hospital. So one day I told Hurschel, she was so bad and I was trying to bathe her. She would just lay limp-like.
It's
And
lifeless.
finally
She wouldn't move.
no, she wouldn't cry a lot, but she would just limp and just lay there like that and wouldn't eat or anything. And I laid her down I told him one day, I said, something's got to happen. I said, this baby's going to die if something's not done for her, if she's not healed some way. And so he said, well, let's just go pray for her. And we took her.
Well, we had prayed for 3 days for her all the time.
Yeah.
The church had too.
But we really had to get down before God in a way that we had never, I guess, reached before with Him. But I put her on the bed, just laid her down on the bed, and she laid real still, just like she had been doing for the last 3 days. And we started praying, and then while we were praying, we noticed that she was raising up, moving around on the bed, and then she started clapping her hands, just like that. And
While we were praying.
yeah, while we were praying. I said, well, God had performed a miracle in her life, and she was all right after that.
that was instant. Hazel got her up out of bed and fed her. She couldn't eat anything. Whatever we tried to give her, she'd vomit it up. And she fed her and bathed her and dressed her. And we took her with us visiting at that time. Within hours, we had her out visiting with us. She was totally all right. And that length of time. She just turned over and began to clap her hands and totally all right.
Now, if you had to give a message out to the whole church, something that you would want to say to them, to do or to carry on or something, what would you say?
I think everybody ought to find his ministry. Every one of us is a minister, every one. Men, women, boys and girls, we have a ministry. I thought last Sunday the young man was speaking that your hands are to be used for God. Every one of us has something to do. Now we have more knowledge, better, more highly educated people and ministers also. But I think everybody ought to find his or her place, because we all need to be soul winners. Everybody does. And there's no place for anybody just to go to church and warm a seat. They've got things to do that I believe everybody, from the youngest to the oldest, can have a ministry and do something for the Lord. I believe that it doesn't have to be ministry. We have so many years thought the call of God was for a pulpit ministry. I believe God has ministry for pastors who are pastors. There are evangelists, and there are teachers, and then there are helps and governments. I think that they have the fivefold ministry Paul spoke about, but that is in the church. Everybody can find a place, and there's something that everybody can do. And we need to keep our children informed all the time, stay close with them, worship with them, have family worship, and worship at home. Join together with families in the church in close fellowship, and worship with them. Then we come together as a corporate body. We are there, we're tuned up, we are ready for the Lord to give us what we need for the next week. You can't, it is not enough just to go to church on Sunday morning, or on Sunday night, or on Wednesday night, or all three of them. Not enough just to go there and expect just to be fed. But the whole of the ministry is to be working. That is, we can go out helping the poor, helping the sick, visiting the sick. And the Bible tells us that we are to visit the sick, the orphans, and take care of the widows and all of that. We're to do that. But the most important thing for all of us is to be a soul winner. All of us can be a soul winner. It is said that it is better to see a sermon than to hear one any day. And when I look around and I see your grandma, I see a sermon walking in shoes. She had been so great. And I see people like that who have been such dedicated, consecrated people. And when I think of somebody like now, we are at this place where we can't do very much anymore. But I want to do all I can. I want to encourage people all I can. And we can be encouragers. We can speak good things. Anybody can do that. But I think that the best thing we can do is go out and bring the people in. Not force them, but with your love. People come, and I want to see this church filled, or we have to have more space.
What about you? What do you?
I was just thinking that when you see so much love in another person, it gives you a hunger and a desire to have that love of God in your life and all. As he was talking about Sister Peterson and Sister Carrie, two of the ladies in the Bisbee Church, and they were two that we watched closely because we didn't know much about Pentecostal churches and anything about them. But we watched their lives and how they lived, and they would invite us into their homes to eat. And they just seemed to keep us busy all the time, going to church or to something to eat with them or do something with them. And that helped us so much to, when we would see them and their love for God and what they had in their lives, then it made us hunger for what they had in their lives. And that's why we would secretly pray, he told you a while ago, at home, each one of us separately, because we were a little embarrassed and a little, well, I suppose ashamed of the church like a lot of people were when they first started into Pentecostal.
We didn't understand the Pentecostal
Well, that's what it was.
teachings.
We didn't understand it all.
But when we did understand it, we got in
Well, God helped
fully.
us through all of that to understand and to
The
begin to
people
see the
were,
light of
it
Pentecost.
was a loving church, and they loved us into the church.
That's
We
true.
felt guilty not to go. They were such small church. If we missed, we felt guilty because we didn't go, because they loved us and they needed us. We felt like they needed us. Well, I got to directing the choir and directing music and singing a quartet every service we had, and so on. But they made us want to do it because of the love. And we got people coming in until the church was crowded out, until didn't have room for people there in that little church. But just all of us have a ministry. You have your ministry of music, and in whatever
You have a
God
lot
has
of
called you.
ministries.
You have a lot of talent, and God has been so gracious. When I see you, I see an intelligent young lady that has a great ministry and a great future for the Lord. You use that talent for the Lord. Everybody ought to do that. Everybody who can sing ought to be in the choir singing. Everybody who can witness ought to be out witnessing for the Lord.
Throughout 53 years, I'm sure there have been times where you got frustrated or downhearted and, you had to really try and get refocused and redetermined. How do you get through those times? If you were to be talking to a frustrated pastor or a downhearted pastor or somebody in the ministry that was kind of in a slump, what would you say? How did you get through those parts?
I'll tell you, I don't know a church anywhere or a pastor who had less problems than we had. We didn't have problems to work out in the church. I was the only pastor, of course, but and I did a lot of counseling. I know I didn't please everybody, because some were kind enough to tell me so face to my face. But when the time came to vote for us, they voted for me 7 times, once a year, and then the General Assembly changed the voting for every 2 years. Then we had 7 times the church voted for me for every 2 years, and then I was just elected for the 3rd 4-year appointment when I had to resign
All
and
the
retire.
years you was there.
That's 14, 15, 16, 17 times the church had to vote for a pastor while I was there. Can you believe? members and friends, 100% voted for me, and I know some of them didn't like some things I did, but they felt like I was in the will of the Lord, and they would vote for me anyway. But we never had problems. We didn't have problems. We didn't have to have a problem fighting with church members or anything. We just had a loving church that loved the people in. We really did. That's all I can say. I can tell you have to be, if somebody comes to you for counseling, you have to be understanding, listen to them, and let them come to their decision about what to do. Give suggestions and suggest things, but I never would tell somebody what they ought to do. I just thought they need to come to that conclusion themselves. But we never had difficulty. We never had to have a conference in church to deal with anybody at all in all of my 31 years of full-time pastoring. And never had one problem.
Ask you. I was talking to Josh, and I told him, because we were studying about Moses, and I said how wonderful that must have been for his wife, Zipporah, to see her husband be used of, just let himself be completely used of God and lead all these people and do all these things. How proud that must have made her feel. And but at the same time, he had to be encouraged to be able to do those things, and that's what you've been for him. So describe a little bit about your position in the ministry. In his ministry, it's just as much as it is yours. So just talk about that.
I can tell you, she's been my psychiatrist.
Kept you sane, huh?
We did. We would talk things over and then pray a lot about things if we felt there was something that was needed or needful in the church. A lot of time, I don't know how to put it. Anyhow, I would say, Hurschel, you better see about this or that. Oh, or what makes you think that? I said, well, I don't know, but you better talk to so-and-so. And this was on personal basis, not...
Right.
And sometimes he would, but sometimes he wouldn't. One time, I kept telling him over and over about something that I could see that was happening. And finally, I talked to one of the men's wives, and she was upset, and I could tell that this had been going on. I told him about by talking with her. She started crying, and I did too, and of course I told her how it was. There was nothing to some things it was. And she started crying too. I said, I told Hurschel that he should have talked to your husband about this. It was a board member I was talking about it. He should have talked to some. And finally, after thinking a little bit more, so I told him about talking to this lady. And so he did. He went and talked to this lady that I had talked to. And then he went to the others that was just a little group. And it all worked out fine. But there was something brewing there that shouldn't have been. But God really took over and worked it out.
But you knew.
Well, yeah.
You kind of could feel it.
It seemed that I said, Hurschel, you're the one that studied psychology in college, and I didn't get to study and go to college like that. I just had the 1 year. And he said, yeah, but said, you can see what's happening sometimes when I don't see it. And I really did. I think, I don't know why or what, but I always prayed that if the Lord, if it was our time to move from a church or to leave or for something like that, I'd say, Lord, please talk to Hurschel about it. Don't talk to me about it. Please tell Hurschel about it, we're supposed to do and all of that. And that was, I guess that's the reason we stayed all the time.
And it was may as well just tell the truth about it.
No.
There was an individual man
Well,
who created a confusion,
Oh.
and he was upset with me and causing a confusion.
I could see
And
what
I
was
was
going
trying
on.
to write it out, but he was getting around faster than I was to members of the congregation, and telling them some things about me that he didn't like, and I couldn't get to all of them as fast as he did, so I preached a sermon one night about people sowing discord. And I preached hard, very hard, because I'd prayed, I'd studied, and I felt like I talked to him and his family, but it didn't do any good. I talked to them and been with them and trying my best to help their feelings. But I preached one night and told the congregation, first, before I started preaching, I told the congregation we had new people there. I apologize to you who are new, but we have some housework we have to do. And so I preached the sermon. And I told the congregation, there are people now getting around to you faster than I can, and telling you things that are not so, that are not true, and getting you disturbed. Don't let anybody disturb and tear this church up. We've worked too many years and too hard.
Things are going
And
too well.
don't let anybody tear it up. The Bible is very explicit about anybody who would disturb the flock. And the Bible said, woe unto the man who would destroy the flock. And when I got through preaching, I preached under a great strain, but when I finished preaching the sermon that night,
I was
that one
praying
man,
a lot while he was preaching, too.
one man got up and told the whole congregation, I am that man. And I want to tell you, I am going to be a better member. I am sorry. And he apologized. After one sermon, I talked to him and his family, but I couldn't get them straightened out. But I never had a better friend in my life than he was from that night on. And
Some that he talked to
so-
got up and apologized too. Well, they hadn't really done anything, but they were listening
the
to
whole church
things that were
was in
errors.
accord, but he was sowing discord. And I just listened to this. I told him in a sermon, but he just got up and said, I am the one. And he said, I'll never do it again. I'll be a better member.
Wow.
And when he died, when his wife died, he wanted me to officiate for her funeral. And she lived in Tucson. They lived in Tucson then. I went down there and officiated for her funeral. When he died, of course, he was in California, but I didn't get to. But he wanted me to do his funeral. And they're best friends in the world.
But our services went on. The Lord still blessed.
Well,
And it was
nobody-
just as if that had never happened.
Nobody
because
left the church,
they
just one
fully
man.
repented of what they had done.
So, well, she was making it kind
And
of.
God just took over. That's what happened.
But that we never had a problem in the church. And that was the biggest problem right there that we ever had. I never had to deal with anybody. We didn't bring any. I could have preferred charges against the man because he was telling falsehoods, but I didn't. I just felt God could work it out, and He did. So.
Sister Diffie, did you ever think you'd be a preacher's wife?
No. But I have always wanted to be a Christian, though. And I guess I prayed in that way, that Lord, if that's what I always had a fear of God, and a fear of what might happen to me or my family or all. I just had a fear of God in my life. I used to listen closely when I was a child. I would go to church. They would hook up the horses to the wagon, and my mother and father sat up in the spring seat with the baby and all of us kids in the back seat, and the bed of the wagon on quilts, and we would go to church like that. We'd get to church, and in those days they would have 2 or 3 preachers and one night preach, And you would get so tired, and of course I was so young, I don't know how old I was, 7 or 8, maybe 9, I don't know. But I would listen to what the preacher would say, and they would scare me so bad till I thought, well, when I get to be 12 years old, I'm going to go to the altar and make peace with God. I thought I was too young as a little girl. But the thing as it worked out, I have heard ministers say that if you did not know the hour and the time you got saved, you're not saved. But I did not believe that as I got older. I hadn't heard it until I was older, because I do not know the time that I was saved. I think I have a time that I think I know when I was saved. We used to have a little Nazarene lady, she's quite elderly lady, lived near us, and she was the sweetest thing, and she always wanted to talk about the Lord, and I just loved to go to her house, just me and her together, and she would talk about the Lord and how good He was and all the wonderful things He'd do for you, and what heaven would be like and how awful hell was. And one day I remember the way from our house to get to her house was a little trail. We could go up one road and then turn off and go the road, or we could cut through and go a narrow way through a little dark trail. And I was scared lifeless to go through that trail. I wouldn't go that way. But this day, after we had had a long talk and everything, and I just felt so good in my being and all. And that day, I wasn't scared to walk through that trail. I walked up the road when I went to our house, but I thought I just went home through that little dark trail. I wasn't scared at all or anything. And I have thought many times that perhaps I was so young as a child that I don't know if that's when I was saved or not. But I do know there was other times in my life that it could have been, but then that was one of the earliest.
So when he told you he was going to be a pastor, that was okay?
Pardon me?
You were okay with that when he decided to become a pastor?
Yes. When I decided to become a pastor, you were okay with that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, she knew that. Yes. She knew it before she knew it while I was praying about it.
Oh, I knew all the time before he ever
when I was arguing with myself and with God that I didn't want to preach.
I knew what was wrong with him, but I wouldn't say anything to him because I didn't want to interfere with between him and God.
We never discussed it till that morning that I told her I'm going to preach. That's the first time I told her that she knew anything about it.
But you could tell all the time he'd say, oh, I just feel like that if I keep my quartet together and pay my tithes and offerings and give to the church and all my time and what I can give, that's what the Lord would have me to do. You're not saying it all. And I could tell that was an excuse he had to stay out of the ministry. And I knew how miserable he was getting too, until one night he prayed underground for a long time. He told me about that and how he prayed and everything. I thought, well, he's going to have to really yield to God one of these days and tell him that he will go preach. And I knew just as well the night that he prayed there, and when he went to pick up the Bible, he just turned back around and had the Bible in his hand like this. He said, well, we don't have to go. I'm going to preach. That's the words he said to me.
I made up my mind when I got the Bible.
Yeah.
I made up my mind. I'll do it if I have to move every 6 months.
He really fought
God
going into the ministry. He had known of so many that started and failed and didn't go on. You know, sometimes maybe people want to go into the ministry. They think that it's going to be something grandiose or whatever. And it's not like that. It is in God's sight because we're willing to do what God wants us to do then. But when you're wanting to go on your own just to be up there and be preaching, think, well, You don't have to work, you don't have to do anything, all you have to do is just, some of them said eat the chicken and sleep, but
We know better.
That's kind of a poor way to express it, but then...
I've been a farmer, I've been a miner,
Plumber.
I've been a timberman, and I've been a plumber. The hardest job I ever had was pastoring,
he used
but the most rewarding and the
Yes,
happiest
that's
job.
right. That's right.
Because
exactly.
you never are without a burden for people and a concern for people.
There's never a relief
You're
from
always
that.
praying for people that
Still,
somebody's in the hospital, somebody's sick, somebody's having family problems, and they've got children that are not doing right, and you're always concerned. But I've had the greatest ministry anybody could ever have. And I thank God over and over. I wish I had known more about the ministry. There's a little saying, so soon old and so late smart. But if I could have known back then, we could have had a church probably like First Assembly. But I did not know how to do it. We just kind of went the best we could, did the best we could.
I think of myself, how I got saved. You've heard this saying, fear led me to thinking, but love led me to decide. And that really told me about my life. I had such fear of what might happen and what God could do and all the things that might happen. We had people in our community that, that's another story that I won't go into, but then it's, they were such people that they really needed God in their lives, and they'd do everything they could work against God. This was back, I'm talking about when I was a child growing up. And I always thought of them, how mean they were, and the things they would do, how awful, what kind of lives they lived. And I knew all of that. Everybody in the community knew it, of course. It was no secret. But then it made me want to have the real thing. And while we was in, even as late as when we was in BTS, before the college days and university days, we had a woman that testified there one time, and a lot of them had to go to her room and really pray with her. She felt like that she didn't have God in her life, and she had been a Christian for several years. It was, should have been 25 years old, I guess, something like that. But I thought how awful that would be. Of course, I had already received the baptism, and I was satisfied in my life. I knew I had the baptism, the Holy Ghost. But I thought that would be awful, and I just prayed, Lord, don't ever let that happen to me, where I get to the place that I doubt you and your works and everything. But anyhow, they prayed through with her. We was in the boys' dormitory, and we didn't go over. It was just the ladies in the ladies' dormitory. But she really was a good Christian, and was when she died. Wonderful lady. She died in Tucson, and she was a wonderful lady. But she knew God and believed in Him before baptism and all. She had.
Let me ask you one more question, because I'm almost close to 2 hours, and I don't know how much tape I've got. Isn't that amazing? I don't want to make you tired either. But, and this is not an easy question, but I don't think you realize sometimes how many lives your ministry has touched and how many people just cherish you and love you so much. So let's just pretend that if you were to leave this earth tomorrow and never see any of them again, what would be something that you would want to say to them?
I can tell them without any qualification that I loved them dearly. I loved my ministry, and I loved the people. I loved the children and the young people. And and I do yet. I'm just so thrilled that I can still I go to church on Sunday morning. I go around all over the church, but I can't go visiting Sunday during the week since I've been ill. And I go to church and go around and see everybody I can and talk to them and hug their necks and tell them how much I love them, because I do genuinely love the people. And I want them to love each other and stay together and pull together in the church. If I go tomorrow, the church is going to be here, and God's work still needs somebody to do what I would leave undone. I can say this: if I go tomorrow, I am ready to go. I had a woman call me some time ago, and she said, I know who's had cancer, and she still may have it, but she said the cancer had treatments for it. She said, I know how frightened you are having cancer in your lungs and that thing growing inside of you. I said, no, I'm not frightened at all. Because I know that this is a thing that comes on anybody. It doesn't, it's not just my disease, it comes to any person. Because I'm a Christian, that doesn't change things at all. But I do know one thing. I know that if this cancer does take me, I'm not going to let it take me without a fight. I'm not going to lie down and let it take me without fighting. But I told her, I'm not scared one bit. I've lived for 25 years with the possibility that my pacemaker could stop any time and I'd be gone. So that doesn't worry me at all. And I am expecting the Lord to come while I'm still alive. And I'll just drop a pacemaker and a pair of glasses and go up. In fact, I had a call from a man today whose wedding ceremony, I'm going to perform the last Saturday in July. And the people in the medical field and who've been coming to visit me here, visiting nurses, have wanted me to go into hospice, where you want to have no more than 6 months to live. Want me to go to hospice? I told them I'm not ready for that. I'm thinking further ahead than that. And so now the lady who was trying to get me to go into hospice, then after they had been visiting me 3 times a week, with the therapist twice a week and nurses 3 times a week, she said, I won't be back. And then last Tuesday they called me from visiting nurse service, and they were cutting me off. They wouldn't be back to see me. And so I'm just in the hands of the Lord. And this thing, I don't know. My doctor is telling me that it is possible the cancer may be dead now. And so I've had more tests the last 2 weeks. Had one last week, and I've been hoping the doctor would call me today to tell me the results of that one. They punctured my lung, went in again, took about 5 or 6 samples from the place where the cancer is, where it has been all the time, the big mass in my chest on the right side. It is scattered around over in other places too, but that big mass, they're taking 5 or 6 samples out of that with a needle, big needle, puncturing my back, coming through my back. And I'm expecting them to say that that thing is going away. Because now I'm able to, just yesterday, I started getting up and walking away without falling over and staggering around and all of that. And I'm doing a lot better, and I'm so thankful to God. I'm going to be disappointed if that thing isn't gone.
Yeah, just a second.
Just a word or two, maybe.
Go ahead.
Not I was just thinking while he was talking, he kept talking and got off on other things too, but then I can just say ditto to all the things that he answered that was pertaining to your question. But I love so many of the good old songs. I can just really get blessed. I know it takes God's word to help you to get saved and to know Him. But He is the comforter that helps you to live the Christian life. And I have just always prayed that my life would never be anything that anybody would see in me, or that I would never do or say anything that would hinder them and their Christian life. But I was just thinking, one of the things that I would tell them was that old song, hold to God's unchanging hand. Just keep holding on to God and trusting and believing in Him. He has answered so many prayers for us that I could never have anything but the love of God in my life. And I used to teach a Sunday school class. I taught for many years, and I still get letters and hear from some of my scholars that I had in class. In fact, one of them came by to see me not long ago that I'd been in touch with her mother some, but she had written me several letters. And she and her mother came by, and her husband, to see us not too long ago. And they just seemed overjoyed to get to know that we were both still living and could talk to them. You know, they hear how bad we are, and we have been bad. He has, especially. His problems have been very severe at times, and we'd think he wouldn't be here long unless God did undertake. But I really believe God is undertaking now in his life and helping him. But I can just hear those songs, and I can be blessed as much by those as I can by reading the Word or hearing a good sermon, and I love to hear a good sermon. I love to hear a good
Tell
sermon.
me some more of the songs.
Pardon
What
me?
other songs do you like?
Oh, I hadn't thought about. There's so many of them, it's hard to.
Some of the ones you sing sometime at church, you put flash them on the screen. Some of the old hymns.
Yeah, the one that I remember. What is that about? A walk.
We don't have that.
I told Dorothy to sing. She would sing it. Nobody knew Hurschel was resigning except the board. He didn't have a meeting when he had to resign from his health problems. The doctors had told him he had to resign. He said, well, I can't just get up on Sunday morning and resign. Said, I'm going to have a board meeting Saturday night, last minute before Sunday morning, you know, and tell them what's taking place. And so I called Dorothy that day and asked her if she would sing that song. And you use the chorus of it now. It's one of our songs that we sing a lot. But I can't get the words in my mind. But she did. But of course it was a hard time for us and a hard time for the church too. And
That was 1976.
76,
right.
yes.
I remember that.
You
I
remember?
was there.
Bless
I
you.
was 5.
Bless you.
I had pastored 5 years after having a massive heart attack. The doctor kept trying to get me to take a disability. You're going to die. You don't see you die. I'd pass out and fall down. I pass out in the pulpit, fell on the floor of the pulpit. I fell off the platform and shattered my knee and had to have an operation on it. Just passed out cold and fell off the floor. And so he told me that I had no choice in the matter. If I went to see the doctor, they took a cardiogram and checked my heart. He said, you have no choice in the matter but to quit now if you want to live. I can't do anything more for you. You can fall off that stool and die right now, and I couldn't do a thing for it. And I said, all right. He said, if you'll quit, I'll get you a disability, and then I want to see you live. That was 1976. And now we've had 25 years, nearly 23 years since then. And God has been good to us, leave me around here that I can still get around and see some people. I don't, since I've found that I have cancer, I don't get out because I know my immune system is down now, and I don't want to get any diseases or contact any germs and so on. But when the doctor told me about a month ago there's nothing more they could do for me, that I want to just keep me comfortable, treat my symptoms, keep me as comfortable as possible the rest of my life. They expected me to go before very long. And I told Hazel I'm not planning on that. And so they don't know what to do. In fact, Dr. 3 weeks ago we went to see my oncologist, and he was talking about it. He said, well, you did have, I told Gloria, she asked him a question. He said, well, he did have non-small cell carcinoma, cancer. And she said, well, if he did have it and doesn't have it now, why are we here? And he said, well, we're trying to find that out. Hazel told him, now you've got me confused.
Well, I said, I'm just lost now.
I'm lost, she said, and he said, I am too. He didn't know what to do with me because I'm supposed to be dead now.
The doctor's the one supposed to be in charge and taking care of him, and yet they can't make up their mind if he has or if he hasn't. And all of them, but the doctors agree on the same thing.
So the doctors are supposed to call you anytime and let you know.
Today, I've been waiting today and tomorrow, yesterday and today, for a report because they took samples from my lungs to see last Thursday to see if the cancer is still there. He thinks it may be dead. And you know, I told Hazel, I get out of bed, I walk off. I don't use my cane. I just walk around here
I know, I see.
without my cane. Well, that's just been 2 days I've done that. I'm not having that terrible dizziness, and they told me that I've had 7 brain scans because the doctor said that will go to your brain.
They keep wanting to make one test after another all the time. Let's do it,
We were singing that the first time we were singing it, the choir, when Hazel asked her to sing that song, because he lives.
Yeah, that was before we
tomorrow.
retired.
That's a great
That's the day that I had to resign. That day.
Dorothy told me some time ago,
We'll
she
hear
said,
it since the phone rang.
she said, I always knew that when Sister Diffie would request a song, she had some meaning behind it. And I wanted her to have on the record, Hurschel sang Eastern Gate. And I asked her if he could sing that song. If they could sing it, I didn't think about it. He has the lead part in it. But they didn't sing it like they usually sing it. They sang it, the chorus,
On the record.
and then go back
album.
and another chorus like that. But Precious Memories is another one of my favorites. At my family, my whole family, when someone in the family goes, that is one of the songs that's always sung at the funerals. Precious Memories. That has a lot of meaning to it. It's not, may not be so much scripturally written, I don't know about that part, but it has a lot of good meaning to it that makes you feel what you've got inside.
How many years have you guys been married?
63 years, last December 27th. 63.
And she's still your sweetheart.
She's still my
1998.
sweetheart, right? She's still
Whatever
my
Hazel
sweetheart.
wants, Hazel gets.
Yeah, whatever Hazel wants, Hazel gets. Right. That's been always. But we've had a beautiful, wonderful life. We've had our problems, but we worked them out. And we've had disagreements, but there's no use to
Work them out too.
stop, work them out.
If we didn't, we just had to leave them there.
but we always worked them out and always came out happy, and it's too meaningful. A marriage is too meaningful. It has a lot more than just people living together. There's a whole lot with it.
I remember you always saying, let's agree to disagree agreeably.
Yeah.
That's right, that's right.
Yeah.
And that's what we've done, no doubt, several times too.
But never
Will you
let.
say that for the video?
Let us make our minds up to disagree agreeably. If we disagree agreeably.
That wasn't exactly
It's okay.
But we really, it is the truth, two people, you got two brains working and two personalities. But there's nothing that can't be worked out. And that's why I feel so happy when I see two young people getting married. I think they're going to make it, and I pray that they will. And I can look over my records. I'm so happy there's been so few of the 330 or so weddings I have performed. There's so few divorces in that group. I'm so glad. And it always makes me sad when there is a divorce. But what a privilege it is to see people happy. I love to see a couple as old as we are who can't keep their hands off each other. And I embarrassed Hazel some time ago. We were down in the grocery store parking lot, and she didn't get out. I went in and got groceries, and I came out, and I was driving up between the parked cars. A little old couple, about 80 years of age, came out of the store. He had a little bag of groceries, she had a little bag of groceries, and they were holding hands and just going along talking, and I pulled the car over. They were on the right side. I pulled the car over, and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Just a minute, I'm going to speak to these people." And I rolled up by the side of them, rolled her glass down, and I told them, "You two have made my day today. I just love to see an older couple who just love to hold hands and walk along happily together." And they said, "We are happy." And it always does me good. I was officiating for a funeral some time ago. And it was one of the members of our church, but Hazel was too sick. She couldn't go to the funeral. And I just mentioned that everybody knows I call her my sweetheart. And I said, well, my sweetheart couldn't come today. She didn't feel like coming. And but I'm so glad we've been able to spend, at that time, I think 62 years we'd had together. I mentioned it. And when the funeral service was all over, a lady from Flagstaff brought her husband around. She said, "I want my husband to meet a man who can call his wife sweetheart after 62 years.
Well, he was going down to Idaho to preach, and I stayed home the first 2 Sundays. I believe I couldn't go. And he called me sweetheart down there.
I told him my sweetheart couldn't come with me.
Go ahead. Tell it.
Oh, I told the people my sweetheart couldn't come. Well, the third Sunday she went with me down there when I was going down to preach. And we went in, and I was going around greeting the people, and one of the ladies said, "Now, you call her sweetheart, but what do we call her?"
That's such a nice group of people down there. You would enjoy just being among them. They're all so nice and friendly, and they love the Lord so much and everything, and they're just doing wonderful in that church.
Christ shall come with shout of acclamation, undertakes me home. What joy shall fill my heart? Then I shall bow in humble adoration under their proclaim